What the world needs now are men who are committed to discipling young men and raising the next generation to be young warriors for Christ.
What's up, Soulcon, Gaborum Nation? This is Floyd. I am here with two of my closest friends, and we are here today to talk to you about a project that is very near and dear to my heart. Most of you have probably heard about it at this point, Soulcon Young Warrior. I'm here with the authors, a couple of dad disciples, and we're just going to talk a little bit about the book, about where it came from, about the design of the book, and how it is to be used. And we hope that this video helps you and that you are able to take this tool and use it as a resource to disciple your children, especially your sons in this case, and help them find a closer walk with Christ, as we know that the Soulcon Challenge has done for many of us. What's up, guys?
Hey, good to see you, Floyd.
Good to see you, man. Thanks for having us.
So talk to me a little bit about this. What is, so the title is Soulcon Young Warrior. What is Soulcon Young Warrior?
Yeah, so man, I tried to figure it up a few weeks ago, but I have completed 20 plus challenges. I've been around this for a long time, as both of you guys have been around for a while. And one thing that has been on my heart for several years and leading this is watching my children, my two boys, watch me do challenges and seeing them, do push-ups with me, seeing them pray with me, seeing them watch me read my book, and just my heart behind, this project and really praying through this was there are not a ton of discipleship tools out there for young men. And the ones that we do have, which I've got a few on my bookshelf here, they are really good at telling us what those are, but not good at telling us how to apply those. And so really my heart behind Soulcon Young Warriors is in my children. I want my children to have a resource that can mean so much to them as means to me, and teach them disciplines, but not just the disciplines, but how to apply those disciplines. And that's, man, that's really the biggest thing. Soulcon has changed my life. It's given me a brotherhood. It's given me, a commitment to disciplines, and I want my children to have that same thing.
No, I agree, Randall. The For me, it hits those same notes, but I've got two daughters who have seen me do challenges, and my youngest one is always wanting to go on runs and be involved. And when Cody put out the Young Gaborum program, it was great. And I've taken my daughters through it a couple of times, but it doesn't hit the same way that I think this can. There's no story involved. It doesn't necessarily pace with me. It's something I'm doing extra. But to have like this discipleship tool, like you were talking about, that I can walk through with a young man, and it's not only going to help build him up, it's going to put me in that position of leading and teaching him what it means. It's going to grow me that much more. I cannot wait to get this in my hand and get this in the hand of men everywhere, just so we can see God's kingdom explode. There is a massive need for this, especially among young men.
Randall, you're a full-time student pastor. Gordon, you're beginning to step into your role of your truth as a youth minister as well. I've been working with the youth group there in your church, and now going to be teaching in the new year. Pretty excited about that. So is that kind of where the vision came from, or where did the vision for Soulcon Young Warrior, where did that come from?
Yeah, man. So I love church. I love all things church. And I say that because I love what we do here at my local church, and I love what I've witnessed you guys do at your local churches, and many of the guys in this ministry. Um, but one thing that I feel like our local churches are lacking is that authenticity in discipleship and really challenging young people to go against the grain and to live opposite of the world. Um, and here's the thing, man, it's no, mystery. I love pizza parties. I love the dodgeball events. I love church camp. I love all those things, man. I love hanging out with teenagers. It's just a passion of mine. But more than all of that, I love the moment when a teenager gets it. When there's a moment when you're talking or praying or they've spent some time in the word and they show up in the office and they open their Bible and they're like, "Did you know what this says in James?" Or do you know what this says in Genesis? And that moment when they are intentional with their disciplines and they get it, or send me a text, like, "Man, I was praying this morning and this is what God showed me." Well, God wouldn't have showed them that had they not been intentional with that discipline. And my fear is that in a lot of our churches is we just have so many programs that aren't trying to truly mold young people with the gospel and mold people to look like Christ in all that they do. And so, that's really my heart behind that. And then I don't want to talk too long on this, but I'm wearing this shirt, the Kaysen shirt, and I chose to wear this for a reason because last summer when I was at the Hughes family farm and going through the run and all the stuff that we were doing, I just couldn't help but notice a group of about 5 or 6 young men that were right there, step for step, pace for pace with their dads, and just a special moment seeing those disciplines instilled in those young men. And so I would say for me, that's kind of where it came from. And then Gordon has been a huge blessing in this project, and man, just having him, kind of light that fire and keep us going has been a huge win. So
Yeah, I think I was sitting in the car. We were on the way to the beach when you texted, "Hey, I've got this idea for something big that I want to do." And I think one of the biggest downfalls of just even youth ministry is it's in the dads at home that we rely on that to be the disciple tool for our kids. And that's one day a week or sometimes two. Um, Dads need to be actively involved in their kids' discipleship. It doesn't just happen at church. Most of it happens during the week when they're watching you and how you respond to stuff. And we as dads need to be better at building them up. And you threw that idea out, man, and I was excited, but to be honest, I was scared, and I was like, "Yeah, Randall, I would love to read over what you do." And I picture God up there in heaven, just laughing, knowing what He was going to do with that, and how He was going to continue to grow in me. So, man, it's been a great spiritual, personal, and just a growth in my identity to be a part of this. And I am excited, beyond excited, to see what God's going to continue to do with it.
So I've been fortunate and privileged to kind of be a spectator in this journey all along the way. And one of the coolest things for me is as I've read through the book, I know the process. I know how it went. Um, One of you, and I don't remember who was which, one wrote odd number days and one wrote even number days. I think Randall wrote odd and Gordon wrote even number days. And reading through it, you can't tell it's two different voices. And it's pretty cool. It's very neat when something like that happens. You really, I typically you can identify the voices because you can't. For me, it just points back to the fact that you guys were both tuned in and you were listening to the voice of God, and that's really the heart, right? Is that we want the voice of God portrayed more than your own voices. So we've touched a little bit on this. Because we talked about the vision, but what's the heart? What's the heart behind Soulcon Young Warrior? What do you hope this accomplishes?
yeah, so I got the privilege last year to meet Brent Taylor, as a lot of you guys know, and one of his common phrases, whether he stole it or came up with it, I don't care, but one of his common phrases is "love and lead well." And That's my heart is we need tools in the hands of men to help them love and lead their children well and the young people around them. And you know, it was really neat in this project because we had several people that Gordon and Floyd and I are all connected to that we would go to. And for example, like Brent would, was a kind of a content editor or whatever. He would give us some ideas. Hey, I think we should go this way. Other people would say, what do you think about this issue and navigating this, because there's some very challenging topics in this, especially covering with teenagers. But I think it all leads back to loving them and leading them well and setting them up for success, and setting them up for success in this life of living for Christ. Because, man, the truth is, and what a lot of teenagers are not told and young people are not told, is that the enemy is real and he's out to get them, and he tries to do that at a very very young age. um, and we can fluff it up with pizza parties and all this stuff, but that's the reality that they need to be on alert. And hopefully this resource will be a good tool for that. And so i just want to see I just want to see young people come to Jesus, man. That's the main thing. I want to see them come to Jesus and fall in love with him and pursue him. And so yeah, that's it.
You nailed it on the head, Randall. The love and lead well is such a powerful mantra, and it's something that the young generation struggles with. They don't know how. They need someone to show them. Um, I like you, man. I If you want to get your batteries recharged for Christ, go hang out with some young people, hear their hearts, and listen to them pray. Listen to them talk about Jesus, and it will fire you up. Um, that's been one of the greatest joys about getting to work with the middle school and high school age kids. It's amazing. Um, but at the same time, like we've touched on, we need a tool for them to be able to truly become disciples and followers. Um, that thing that's going to grow them and help them, fight off the temptations that come. I mean, how many of us have said, "I wish I had something like this when I was that age," and even if I did, I don't know from my personal story if I would have been able to, utilize it as well. But that's why we need men and dads involved to help lift the kids up and have those conversations and say, "Hey, I've been here. This is how you get through it." And like you said, Randall, and I just want to see kids come to Jesus because we, as a society, a country, a nation, a world, that is something we desperately need. We need this younger generation in love with Jesus and just passionately telling everybody about him.
Well, you guys know I've been a fan of the project from the beginning, um, and as I was reading through it, I will tell you both very openly, won't surprise anybody. I got to day 7, and as I was reading day 7, even just the thought of it, as I was reading day 7, and the way that that was articulated and written, um, I had to actually close my computer and walk away for a minute. I was weeping to the point that I could not see, just the way that that was handled. And and I'm not going to tell you guys what it is. I don't want to ruin the surprise for you, but day 7 was very incredible. The entire project is amazing. But day 7 was written in such a way that really captured my heart, even as an old man with grandchildren, and thinking, hey, maybe one day my grandson, I'll be doing this with my grandson and his dad. Um, and the thought of being able to walk through that process and have the opportunity that is presented there in day 7, yeah, it gets me every time I talk about it. Now I can't see my notes. Um, does a So let's get into some of the practical pieces as we kind of wrap this up. Let's get into some of the practical pieces. Does a man have to have completed a Soulcon challenge before he can lead someone through Soulcon Young Warrior?
I think the quick answer is no. This is a resource that can be used. I would recommend, if you are going to walk a young man through Young Warrior, walk through. You need to be doing the challenge alongside of him. I think it would make it easier and it would flow probably a little bit better. But I think the quick answer is no. This is this is written to be used as a companion resource, but it could also be used as a standalone. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I think you guys kind of agree with that. But I would say this: the benefits from doing the challenge, a regular challenge alongside, are far they're great. I'll just say that. It's because it is the entire challenge is laid out to mirror the regular Soulcon challenge. And so a lot of the daily challenges are very similar and include some of that, I don't know what the word I'm trying to say here, but it's really congruent to the regular challenge. So it could be a good resource, but no, I think you could pick it up and do it from the get go without. But I would recommend, doing the challenge currently with them, or reading through, getting ahead of the curve a little bit.
Gordon, a little bit different question maybe for you. Would there What advice would you give to a guy that was leading his son or leading a young man through Soulcon Young Warrior that maybe has never done a challenge before? What advice would you give them?
I think definitely leading into the spirit. Um, as Randall mentioned, if you've gone through a challenge, it's going to help because you know the road ahead. You know what's coming, and it gives you the tools to navigate that a little easier, and it gives you the reference points on what uh, what is happening in the book and where it's going. But if you've never gone through it, that is man, that is such an amazing opportunity to have it just a special bond and of going through the challenge for the first time together. I mean, if I had never been through one and I had a son, that would be powerful and impactful, and just leaning into the spirit to help guide us in that task, and really being open to having more time to spend in conversation about what you read, about the challenges. I think you would definitely spend more time and go through it a little bit slower because there would be a little bit more to unpack. And while you don't need to go through it, I think it helps. But man, it would be absolutely incredible to walk through it for the first time with somebody and just have that bond and that growth.
I think one thing for us, the three of us, are very tightly connected um, with several other guys, and one thing that we talk about a lot is community and how important community is. And I love the way that Soulcon Young Warrior addresses that. I love the way that it touches on it, and then it touches it again, and then it builds it, and then it really encourages it. So I would say, just from my perspective, the advantage of really digging into community, especially if you're walking through this for the first time, you're doing your first Soulcon challenge, and you're bringing your son along in that with Soulcon Young Warrior. Man, dig into the community, find some other brothers that have done challenges before, have them tell them exactly what you're doing, and have them walk through that process with you. For me, I had a guy that reached out to me in the first few days of my first challenge, and he shepherded me through it, because I'm here in Central California. I was all by myself. There were no other Soulcon guys around, and had it not been for that guy, I may not have completed the challenge, and I certainly wouldn't still be here today. So the community aspect is huge for me.
Definitely.
Yep.
So, is there a way, guys, for maybe a man that doesn't have a son to participate in Soulcon Young Warrior?
Yeah, Gordon, I'm gonna let you go ahead and hit on that because I mean I have two boys, and so for me this is kind of a natural. I mean, this is just easy. So Gordon, I mean, interested to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, God knew I couldn't handle a boy. He gave me two beautiful daughters. There's definitely a way. Man, and you guys know my story, but other guys on here might not. I didn't have a positive male presence in my life through pretty much my entire childhood, especially those important adolescent years. Um, and if you've got someone in your community, a church, maybe it's a son of another dad, you could easily reach out and if you can't meet every day, maybe you can message him polo or talk on the phone and walk through it. But I think you could definitely, work with a kid who, a son who wasn't your own, and walk through it. I mean, my youth pastor, I mentioned this book to him as we were writing it, and he got fired up about, hey, is this something we could do with our youth ministry, and walk them through. And that, I mean, that was something I hadn't even thought of. And it's an amazing idea of where God can take it and what He can do. But yeah, I think just it would take a little more work. Um, but let's be honest, man, these kids are worth it. They need it. If they don't have that male presence in their life, and you can be that, you, you don't know the impact and the power that you would have in them. Um, it's it's something very, very near and dear to my heart. I actually work with, youth age 12 to 17 who the most prominent thing in their life is a lack of a male presence, no dad in the home or anybody actually speaking into them. And when they get that, man, they will soak it up like a sponge. And it might not stick right away, but you're planting those seeds for later in life. And I think this is definitely a tool that can be used for that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the only thing I would add to that is if you are going to commit to walk a young man through this, for the love of everything, commit.
Mhm.
Do not commit to do this and then 4 days in, go MIA because young men have enough of that already. And so Gordon was right. It might take a little extra effort, but I think it can be done, and I think it can be done well. But it's going to require you as a man to buckle down and really commit to do that. And so I think we can see some cool things happen. And another dynamic is if you connect a father and a son together. Maybe there's a dad that you're close with that's a friend of yours, and he has a teenage son. I mean, what a unique way to bring the dad into the brotherhood and the ministry. Maybe it's through a gift, or maybe it's like, hey, I'd like to meet with you and your son once a week. That could be a really special thing.
I like it. That's really cool. Um, I You guys know my story too. Like I didn't have a relationship with my dad much at all until I was about 17, 18 years old, and did not have a good relationship with him until I was 21, 22. And but if it wasn't for the voices that were in my life, the positive male voices that were in my life, and that came through church, that came through being a part of a community, being a part of a body. So I already know of one guy who is looking forward to this book being released, so that because he already has a young man in his church that he has in mind that he wants to walk through this. So I'm excited about seeing how God uses it in that way too, to kind of father young men who do not have that voice, of that positive male voice in their life. So one last question for you guys, and then we'll wrap up completely. What's the goal? How should this book be used?
Yeah, I think like we've discussed, it should be used with a mindset of, you know, we can all go back. I can go back to my first challenge and sitting through challenge Mike and going through it alone, and then going through challenge November with the community. And man, just the things that God revealed to me in that, and just where my life has gotten and where my life is now compared to where it was back in challenge Mike in November. And I'm a different person. The disciplines are there, and God has just really kind of shook me to my core, to what it means to be a disciple. And so, you'll see on the front cover it says authored by dad disciples. I think the goal in this is to make disciples and to disciple our children with the hopes, just I mean it's gospel with the hopes of them making other disciples. A beautiful thing is if, for example, I'm able to lead my son Caleb through this in a few years when he's older, and then him going through this, and next thing you know, by the time he's 18, he has been ingrained in this ministry and in the gospel so much that it's not it's not difficult. It's an easy transition for him to be a part of Soulcon and Gaborum, and next thing you know, he's got his small group of guys that he's been connected to. And it's all going back to these are things that I did not have as a child. I had community in my football teams and this and that, but our goal was to win football games. Our goal wasn't, to be disciples of Christ. And so once football's over, that goal is useless, right? And there were other things I learned, but I just imagine had I had a group of men investing in me, pouring into me, and these resources as a young man, where I would be today. All of the heartache, all of the junk that I had to deal with, all the stupid mistakes that I made, how much of that could have been avoided had I had these disciplines in place? And so I'm going to be bold here and say we want to change a culture, man. We want to change the stereotypical young man, and we want to see God do something big and see him do some big things through this. And so that's the end goal. We don't have little goals. Little goals are stupid. We have big goals. We want to see God do big things, and we're trusting that He is. He's the same God that parts the waters and moves the mountains. So let's see Him. Let's see Him move in the lives of young men.
Randall, you nailed it right there. Changing the culture. We all have that similar story of we had these deep holes and father wounds in our life that, for me, dramatically impacted my identity, and not in a good way. It was to a detriment. And you spoke about going through your first challenge alone, and then the next one joining in with community. Guys, it's a companion book. It's designed to get you and your kids to dive into community, with others and together. And one of the phrases you're going to hear a lot in this book is, "I'm proud of you," and that is something that a lot of us did not hear a lot growing up, and is something that even a lot of us struggle with sharing with our kids and saying enough. But it's going to impact and change that culture of how we lead and love our kids. And by doing that, it's going to change how they see community, how they seek it, and how they grow in it. And man, I cannot wait to see what God does. And like Randall said, little goals are dumb, they're stupid. We want to change the world with this. And you know what? God's behind it. It's going to happen. So let's do it.
I've said about this book from the beginning because this is just the way that it hit me. This is a book that will impact generations. I think the cover of the book, the design of the cover speaks volumes, and it hit me immediately when I saw it. Man, if a man will point the way to Jesus, the young ones will look up and they'll find him there. So anything that I missed, gentlemen, anything else you want to say?
And the only other thing I want to say, Floyd, is I hope that when you read this book, and when your young men read this book, that you see the stories and know that although this book was a fictional story that we created, and yes, we wrote Opposite Days, and it was amazing to see how that blended together. These things are real. There are real topics, real issues, and you mentioned day 7. Day 7's impactful because day 7's a real story. These It may be a fictional storyline, but the stories deep inside of this book, man, this is the gospel at work. And so I'm not saying that to puff Gordon up, myself, or anything like that. I'm saying that to say this: our heart behind this was to be authentic, to present the gospel, and to challenge dads, and to just see young men love Jesus. And so, man, that's all I got. I hope you guys enjoy, and can't wait to see. Man, I can't wait to see what God does through this, man.
Yeah, you mentioned it, Randall. These some of the days they really drew from personal experience, and we were writing about some of our own struggles and faults and even victories, and it made it hit that much more when we were going through it. It was such an amazing process, and seeing what God did during that, I cannot wait to see what He does with it when it's in the hands of men who want to impact this next generation. I'm pumped. I can't wait. And you know, feel free to reach out. Love to walk through this with any dads who are taking kids through it. It's going to be amazing.
It's just the beginning, boys. Just the beginning.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, thanks for your time today. A couple of just things that I wanted to mention. The book is written for 12 to 17-year-olds. It's written from that mindset with that mentality, which these guys do really, really well. The average daily challenge, there's no 4 or 5 page days like there are in the Soulcon challenge. Everything is less than 2 pages in the book. The first 77 pages, I think, of the Soulcon challenge book was broken down into 10 or 12 pages. Guys did an amazing job just paring it down and using this as a tool for men to have conversations with their sons or with other young men that they're leading through. So thank you for your time, guys. I'm super excited. Depending upon when you're watching this video, the book, the Soulcon Young Warrior book, ebook, edit that. The Soulcon Young Warrior ebook will drop in the store on Monday, December 27th, sometime the morning of Monday, December 27th, 2021. So if you're watching this after that, it's already available at gaborim.com. And man, super excited about the potential that this book has and what I honestly and truly believe we will see come to fruition as a result of one man's vision that spread to many men that we got to participate in and be a part of, and then the heart and the vision for young men that was placed upon you two men. And I'm honored to be connected to you, honored to call you my friends, and privileged to call you my brothers. I love you guys very much.
Appreciate you, man. Love you, dude.
Yeah, thanks, Floyd. Love you, man.